And good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar titled Drive Scalable and Secure Always On B2B Collaboration. This webinar is brought to you by Express Computer in partnership with IBM. I'm Sandhya Michu, Principal Correspondent with Express Computer. Today, companies are managing an increasingly complex multi-enterprise ecosystem overrun with different systems, processes, and tools. To stand apart in today's hyper-connected global economy, you need to radically simplify connectivity between the people, system, and data that matter to your business. With the majority of B2B organizations still relying on ERP systems alone, there is a need to have which function in siloed environments and regard inventory, orders, and fulfillment as separate units instead of one connected overflow or view of data. There is a huge delay in servicing orders, which leads to slower delivery, huge inefficiencies, and increased cost. Today, in this webinar, you will learn how to enable a frictionless network to simplify B2B collaboration, connectivity, and decision-making for your business. But before we take the session forward, let me give some information about the webinar. Well, this webinar, this is audio and video webinar, is being broadcast live and will be available as on demand. We have a round of Q&A at the end of the webinar. However, you can send in your questions at any time during the webinar using the questions text box. If you face any technical issues, please try to refresh your browser or else reach out to our team using the same questions text box. If you have any further questions or wish to interact with the speaker, please leave a comment using the question box and the IBM team will contact you post the webinar. Lastly, a survey form will appear in your browser after the webinar ends. I request the audience, please take a feedback and we look forward to your feedback and your suggestion. So that's all from my side for now. Now I would like to introduce our speaker for the day. Today we are joined by Levin Naidu, a frictionless business executive, IBM Sterling APAC. I quickly introduce our speaker's profile for the audience sake. Levin is a frictionless supply chain executive within IBM Sterling Business Unit. He has led multiple initiatives of economic significance across a number of geographies. His passion is to reduce business friction within several supply chain and compliance related disciplines. Levin is an active member of several international standards technical committee and has a wealth of experience in driving mass market adoption of standard and technological change. So I welcome you, Levin, to this webinar. Can we start with the first poll? Can I have a first poll on the screen, please? I request audience to participate in this poll. Levin, I'll just hold for a minute. So the poll question, do your business unit see B2B integration infrastructure as critical to their business success? The answer is within yes or no. Request audience to please.
Okay, I'm seeing the second poll on the screen now. So I guess if you could read out that question.
Okay.
Answer, yeah.
Sure. So what are this poll says, what are your significant B2B challenges? So we have multiple choice. The choice number one is too many point-based solutions, data security or compliance issues, visibility or monitoring. The next option is trading partner, onboarding in resource intensive, and the last option is pressure to move to cloud. I request audience to please participate in this. Any take, Levin, as our audience is participating in this poll? Any quick comment on this?
Oh, that's great to hear that it's business to appreciate that B2B integration is of critical nature to their business success. That's great. And the second poll results? Because that would help me tweak what I say.
Right. I think audience is participating in this. So we will have our result ready.
No, that's great to see. I see visibility and monitoring is
Sure.
a priority to everybody.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that I spend some time on that during the presentation as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I guess we can start. Well, thank you so much, Sandhya, for hosting this call, and thank you everyone for attending. I hope this is going to be a valuable session to you, and happy to take your questions at the end or do any follow-ups post the call. So essentially, digitalization has been something we've been doing for the last 40 years. It's nothing new, right? And because we have recognized value and benefit of automating business processes and communications with those we trade with, right? But overnight, and sorry to harp on the COVID-19 topic, but it's going to be around for the next 10 years. People are going to talk about it as lessons learned, right? But overnight, COVID-19 has changed how we live, how we work, and in many cases, how we think. We need to get digitally closer to our trading partners. Now, months into rolling waves of lockdowns and reopenings, remote working, restricted travel, interrupted supply chains, and unparalleled uncertainty, businesses have been forced to reevaluate and in some cases reimagine their business models and reprioritize their investments. This has left many B2B businesses, those who are heavily dependent on other businesses, to find new ways to stay relevant and interact with current and prospective clients. Many are scrambling to find new ways to support clients, immediate and long-term initiatives, as they too pivot to new digital channels, processes, and strategies to differentiate their brands. Pre-COVID, I'd be talking with you about consumerization, customer expectations, keeping up with technology trends, increased e-commerce growth, and generally about efficiency gains and benefits of B2B integration. But that's all changed. It's now about survival and in every sense of the word. For all the damage COVID-19 has caused, disruption tends to boost innovation. Businesses have to find new ways to increase digitalization and automation, to free up people's valuable time from doing low-value work to higher value work, and to look to disruptive technologies to help with this. And given the current pressures, the changes need to be pretty quick, leaning towards more of a commercial off-the-shelf approach for as much capability as it can, rather than custom build and custom integration. None of the traditional elements that make up a trusted B2B relationship have lessened with the business distancing that we have today. If anything, they're now even more important. According to a chief marketing officer survey, marketers predict that post-COVID-19, customers will place a higher value than ever on trusting relationships, with 29% saying that it will be their top priority. Trust is earned when clients feel their vendors and suppliers are committed to cybersecurity and are adhering to data privacy requirements. Trust is earned when clients' queries and requests are responded to quickly, honestly, timeously, and with transparency. Because the world has changed radically, it doesn't mean that all the old problems have gone away and things are not going to slow down to give you time to catch up. There is a need for speed where customers are demanding shorter cycle or process timeframes. The complexity with varying technology used by a large trading partner ecosystem, increased volumes of these B2B transactions, and governance requirements are still high, with a constant need for audits, regulations, and pressure to provide better security. We've all seen a lot of security issues, cybersecurity issues over the last 12 to 18 months that are on the rise. Industry standards are constantly changing, and there's always going to be cost pressures to reduce IT budgets, right? And let's just see how much things are about to change. You can see the magnitude, right? By 2025, 80% of B2B sales transactions are expected to be occurring in digital channels, according to a Gartner survey. And according to DHL, the global business-to-business market size will increase by more than 70% to reach 20.9 trillion, right? So we know that, the past pressures have not gone, and the future pressures are just going to get worse, right? So this means to be competitive, organizations must waste no time to respond and modernize. It requires a greater degree of business to business, whether it's internal or external, process automation in a secure and reliable way, especially for core applications your business so depends on. Regardless of the industry, B2B integration is vital to the operation of most companies. At the most basic level, the B2B integration processes might consist of just receiving an order over the phone or fax and then manually capturing the information into an order management application, right? At the complete opposite end of the spectrum, integration can be completely automated so that only an exception can stop the process. And there's a wide range of requirements in the market, right? Not all companies view B2B integration in the same way. If you're not operating a complex business, B2B integration might not be a significant part of your day-to-day operations. However, from our earlier poll, we saw that the business in your organizations recognize it's critical to your success. Although there can be much variability in requirements, there are some common capabilities for exchanging documents or files between multiple parties, both internal and external to the enterprise. So the exchange often requires onboarding, mapping, secure transport, monitoring, and management across the entire ecosystem of trading partners. And these can be standardized across the business. These common components can be standardized across the business. So best-in-class companies recognize the value of B2B integration and even view it as a competitive differentiator. And especially if the degree of automation means lower processing times, better visibility, lower disputes, and better responses to trading partner needs. This all contributes to reducing friction and improving the partner experience, increasing the value of the relationship. I'll hand you over back to Sandhya to conduct another poll. And basically, it's to understand from your perspective, what are your drivers for modernizing your B2B architecture? Sandhya?
So audience, I will take the next poll. So the poll says, what are your drivers for modernizing your B2B architecture? It's a multiple choice question. I will read out the option number 1, secure B2B integration gateway, simplified partner onboarding, high availability, data transformation, hybrid cloud deployment, and lastly, it's visibility and in analytics. I request our audience to please participate in this poll.
I think they can take more than one, right?
So, Levin, as we are waiting for our audience to participate, so how you see the current trend in the B2B integration? I mean, any new trends which are emerging?
Yeah, there's certainly, everybody's moving to cloud and hybrid cloud architectures. There is, visibility is very topical these days. I meet with many clients and they say, governance and visibility is critical to their business, especially as well as security, right? Okay, that's great. So certainly, again, the second time around, visibility is quite high, but as I mentioned, some of the trends is security is very high as well. So that's also on the top there, and high availability. That's fantastic. Thank you. I'll make sure to emphasize some of those points as we examine each of those key drivers going forward.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for that. So let's examine each of those drivers, right? So from a secure B2B integration gateway perspective, many organizations struggle with multiple point-based solutions, or we also know it's also known as project-based solutions, right? And these gateways are running on outdated technology, and with there is a risk at being at the end of their support life, right? So operating multiple gateways creates processing silos, duplication of capability, where files and business documents are processed separately, which can often lead to inefficient and redundant operations, especially the duplication of capability. Having multiple solutions also can negatively affect the budgets and staffing and complicate integration approach across backend applications, right? So to move forward, organizations need a modernized platform that has the ability to process both file-based transfers and business document process automation, right? On a single B2B integration gateway. They need to also supply an extensible architecture made up of reusable components. And these should ideally be managed or extended or integrated with by using APIs. There's also the increased need from an interoperability perspective to support industry standards and multiple protocols. And as people have highlighted, security is a high profile for high priority. So for a single gateway, it is necessary to support data encryption at rest or in motion, and provide for DMZ-based security as well as partner authentication, right? Today, you can find all of these capabilities in a single gateway solution, and we can talk about that a little more later. From an onboarding and maintaining underlying trading partner and customer data perspective, it can be a very time-consuming activity, and IT departments are struggling these days to handle the manually based onboarding. So the idea is to help partners, trading partners, self-manage as much as possible, because businesses want to leverage their partner relationships as soon as possible. So there is pressure to reduce onboarding times. And often IT departments, and I've seen so many IT departments being tasked with supporting growth, both in the number of partners and constantly changing their mix of partners and the technical requirements for those partners. And those technical requirements might be, different addresses, different protocols, different encryption or authentication approaches, digital certificates and so on, right? So to bring partners on board, IT departments often struggle with the redundant manual tasks across multiple applications, whilst keeping that contact data and profiles, partner profiles up to date, right? So these questions may also arise about where to actually securely store this underlying data. Should it be stored on premise, on local cloud, behind a firewall, or on public or private cloud? So a modern platform should include the ability to allow partners to self-manage their various aspects of the onboarding process. It should be able to provide a single or centralized application for them to manage their contact data, their certificates, and support onboarding across multiple business applications. There needs to be flexibility on data privacy requirements depending on the company's policy or their architectural strategy, which will determine where to store that contact data. It may be on public cloud, private cloud, or on-premise. And a scalable architecture that can adjust to changes in onboarding activity or growth in partners, and can also monitor the state of the relationship. The more self-service capabilities there are, the greater the reduction in costs and improved end-user experience for your trading partners. The next driver is the high availability, and we saw that as part of the poll as well. High availability is becoming all too important. And most enterprises can't afford downtime to their underlying B2B platform or their trading partner communications, right? So it is vital to minimize the impact of a planned or unplanned outage. If an outage occurs, the company must be able to continue to accept documents and minimize the time it takes to resume operations. However, operating backup passive data centers can be pretty expensive at times, and managing the business and security requirements for operating a globally dispersed operation can be challenging. So to address the high availability requirements and minimize the impact of planned or unplanned outages, a modernized platform should be able to provide customer-facing or trading partner-facing communications that are separate from core processing, so they can continue to operate during an outage. They need to most often provide real-time cutover across data centers, which results in zero downtime during an outage. Believe it or not, that technology is available today, and we can talk about that as well. There's often multiple production data centers which act as hot site backups to each other. So supporting that global deployment strategy and be able to do that real-time cutover is pretty important. And no single point of failure is needed to protect against data loss during an outage. So an always-on foundation with scalability and performance is necessary to support global operations and to scale as the business grows. If you look at data transformation requirements, there's internal data transformation requirements, as well as B2B data transformation requirements. And that's one of the common capabilities that is not only reusable for B2B, but also reusable for internal capabilities, right? And we know that business operations are constantly changing. So outdated B2B integration capabilities and a lack of the ability to rapidly reconfigure can limit a company's ability to adapt to quickly changing business requirements, especially with multiple trading partners adopting multiple standards. There's always an opportunity for a particular document structure or message structure to change. In addition, integration processes typically involve some type of data transformation and compliance with industry data standards. So the end result is excessive staff spending time converting one data format to another and hard coding it. And there is a need to plan how you adopt to the next set of updated standards. So a modernized platform should include the ability to rapidly reconfigure operational settings to accommodate the changing business requirements, or it could even be regulatory requirements, right? So regulators might impose a particular set of data standards and give businesses a particular time frame to adopt. The platform must be able to convert data easily from one source format to another. There is technology these days that can convert any format to any format, even unstructured to structured. There must be the ability to provide support for data standards pertaining to your particular industry. There must be the ability to automate internal and external integration processes, including workflows and exception processing. But you should have the flexibility to easily hand off content from external B2B processes and over to internal IT and operational processes. We talked about hybrid deployment as being a trend. A lot of organizations have used multiple clouds. And so there is a need to look at how can you operate with multiple clouds as a strategy. So as businesses developed cloud strategies, they have had to consider factors unique to their environment, such as changing government regulations. Sometimes government regulators say that certain data or certain applications should not be hosted offshore. There's security requirements, there's performance requirements, there's, as I said, in terms of regulations, there might be data residency or requirements for certain data to be onshore, or even government agencies having access to that data, even if it's living offshore. There's also service levels pressures, there's time to market, there's architecture complexity, and the thing that is impacted by impacts everything you do is the technical skills of your employees. So a cloud native containerized approach can give organizations a simpler, more efficient way to deploy, manage, and scale software across multiple environments. IT teams gain consistent deployment lifecycle management using a continuous integration, continuous development pipeline methodology. Using containers, you can actually build and instantiate them quickly and deploy them anywhere across hybrid environments, leveraging an open and integrated container orchestration platform like Kubernetes. And this is shown to provide the portability to run applications on-premise, or the freedom to choose cloud service providers such as IBM, AWS, Azure, Google, and Edge. It also provides the speed of deployment and the control to ensure the failure of one container does not impact the operations of other applications. And there's huge amount of statistics to show the cost benefits or the ROI benefits to organizations. Furthermore, from a security standpoint, policies often dictate whether data can or cannot be stored in the cloud, and we talked about this earlier. So the hybrid approach does provide that flexibility. So we also saw as part of the poll that visibility is also a key driver. And so, because of SLAs and governance over key business processes, visibility into integration processes is more important than ever. Businesses need to be able to view the file contents or the documents, or understand the status of the processing of those files and documents, and to help invoke the appropriate workflows and use B2B integration data to drive advanced analytics. Even including how you're actually doing on your SLAs in terms of meeting customer expectations. A modernized platform should include visibility into integration processes and their statuses, including the ability to track individual documents, interpret the contents, especially to trigger appropriate actions or workflows or address exceptions. SLA capabilities that trigger alerts on process exceptions is critical, right? There's often, we talk about monitoring the business process, but there's also at the same time the need to monitor your high availability nodes to see which nodes are overperforming, which nodes are underperforming, to better understand how you can recalibrate your architecture as you move forward. Advanced analytics also provides the cognitive insights you need to improve business outcomes. So as a summary, to look at all those 7 or 6 key drivers, at IBM, we believe that companies need to deploy these essential elements of a modern B2B architecture to ensure their B2B capabilities can support operational requirements. We've made our B2B collaboration suite available as cloud-native containers. They're modular, so you can deploy what you need now. Companies can get the basics in place and then add other modules or scale as needs grow. I hope this has been an informative session to you, and I'll hand you over back to Sandhya to coordinate the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Levin. Sure, I have a few questions. So I'll just take first question. So the question reads, how probable do you see companies moving to on-premise hosted infrastructure given stricter compliance regulations coming up? Could you hear me?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. How probable do you see companies moving to on-premise hosted infrastructure given stricter compliance regulations coming up?
So we're still seeing organizations being forced by regulators to manage their own infrastructure, because not all cloud providers have the necessary security accreditation. And it depends on the country as well. Some countries have very, very strict rules around certain certifications like PCI certifications, and also depends on the sector the business is in. For example, military, defense, security, and so on, right? So there's still a high probability that a few organizations will still be required to deploy on-premise. But what we've done with our capability is, with the cloud native applications that run on Red Hat OpenShift. OpenShift is IBM's particular implementation of Kubernetes. And so that enables clients to be able to pick up those containers and move them as regulations change, as requirements change. So if you implement a B2B integration platform on the Red Hat OpenShift platform, then being able to pick them up and move them to any environment should not be any challenge, right?
Right. I request audience to please continue to post your questions in the text box. Our speaker from IBM will answer the question. I'll take next question. Is there any way to reduce time to market cost as too much effort goes in API and integration?
Yes. I really love that question, because there are a lot of folks who think, well, you know, the API economy is here and we should all build everything with REST APIs, right? The challenge with, you know, it's similar to, if I could back up a bit, it's similar to many years ago, you know, everybody was going down the SOA path, and people thought, well, you know, the measure of success is having 1,000 SOA services, right? So there is a balancing act between the reusability versus creating a bottleneck, right? So the challenge with API integration is REST APIs are great for information exchange, or if there's one organization that's publishing the API and many organizations using it, right? Particularly in the government space or government scenario. But most B2B processes result in a process that enables end-to-end business process. For example, procure-to-pay lifecycle or order-to-cash lifecycle in the EDI space. This means that the document structures are changing all the time, or quite often, right? So where you need a document agnostic exchange mechanism, and not only exchange, but also the ability to validate the data, apply business logic, BPM-based business logic, and then transform the data and integrate it into the backend systems. The B2B integration approach is the best approach, because you're essentially creating a single pipe. It's document agnostic, and all the smarts around how you actually process that is provided for by your B2B integration platform. So if I could give people an example, a realistic example is, if you have a procure-to-pay lifecycle where you're exchanging purchase orders, purchase order acknowledgements, shipping notices, invoices, remittance invoices, and so on, right? You know, roughly in a fully fledged P2P lifecycle, there's anything between 10 to 20 different document types, right? Now imagine if an entire trading ecosystem had to build that with APIs, right? You'd be spending forever and a day building APIs and integrating with various parties, and you'll be changing them because different parties have different nuances around the message structure, right? So the idea of B2B integration is that it's document agnostic, and it's a single pipe that enables that automation between trading partners and businesses. I hope that has answered the question. So the B2B approach is the best way to reduce integration, business to business integration, rather than using the REST API approach.
Right.
So, Levin, Joseph here.
Sure.
There is an add-on question to that. So there's a question which is follow on, which is from Abhay Bapna, which says that, this is good if we have large retail modern outlets adopting an EDI platform, right? Whereas today there are a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers whom they work, or vendors whom they work, may not have an EDI in place. And what would be an approachable solution for that?
So today there are a number of vendors globally who provide small trading partner options for those who don't have EDI capability. Some of them have REST APIs, some of them have web forms. At IBM, one of the things we've been using is RPA. So even with those SME businesses, some of them might have accounting packages. There is a global trend now for organizations who are vendors of accounting packages to implement EDI standards and frameworks. I'm sure there's some of you may have heard the term PEPL. Unfortunately, the GST network has not gone down the PEPL path, but had they gone down that path, it would have increased capability in India for maximum businesses to embrace digital, because PEPL is a global network that uses the EDI standards and makes it easier for businesses who have accounting packages that have implemented these standards, right? So there's many options for SME businesses to adopt EDI, even though they can't afford sophisticated EDI platforms. And these options are particularly implemented by customers who drive their own EDI networks. So they provide these small trading partner options to those trading partners, right? As part of our B2B collaboration portfolio, we have on-premise capabilities and a supply chain business network that has these features for small trading partners.
Right. I'll take another question, Living. The question says, which of the 6 capabilities shown do you believe is the most important for smaller B2B companies when compared to larger ones, or is the size of the company irrelevant?
Well, so if you look at the way, I can't speak for other vendors, but if you look at the way we've designed our modules, certainly the single gateway approach, which is packed full of features, it's also available as small business versions and enterprise versions as well, right? So there's different sizing for each of those modules, right? And even with the single gateway, there are security features, there are multi-protocol support, there are data transformation features. So the other modules that I mentioned, they're also available separately. They run standalone, as well as being available for different size organizations as well, right? So in terms of complexity and size, and the sheer number of modules that you could use as and when you need them, I think that gives organizations the greatest flexibility, right? At the end of the day, the more you use something, the greater value it provides to your organization, and that's where you get the return of investment, right?
Right. I'll take another question. So the question says, today's cybersecurity landscape is rapidly evolving as hackers are becoming more creative in accessing networks and systems. How do we strengthen our security?
Good question. Well, there's no magic bullet to guarantee 100% protection, right? If anybody's interested, IBM has a website. It's got an X-Force website. Please reach out to us if you want the URL. I don't have it ready here, but it shows at any time of the day what are the vulnerabilities that's hitting the world, right? So there's probably 3 things you can do to decrease your risk exposure, limit your damage, and build resiliency into your systems to recover quickly, right? The first thing is limit the exposure to risks. So yes, your IT security teams might be following best practices. You might be using encryption, permission models, secure access, authentication. But at the end of the day, if you're putting yourself out there on the internet to exchange information with your trading partner community, you might have the highest level of security, but you need a defense in depth in-depth strategy, right? And so choose a product that has that in-depth defense in-depth strategy that can provide the multiple levels of security that you need, that's designed and built from ground up rather than adding security as an afterthought. So if I give you an example, FTP itself was invented in the 70s by an Indian gentleman, by the way. And the industry soon realized that, it's not secure enough, so they added SFTP to it, right? So that's not thinking about security from the ground up, right? The second thing you can do is limit the spread if it's already in your network, right? There's always a chance that you might have a trading partner that's a bad actor, right, within your trusted zones. So what's important is to try and prevent it spreading further. So managing security and authentication or authorization requirements as part of your trading partner onboarding is always helpful to limit that spread, because you can run a campaign. If there's an issue, you can run a campaign that changes all your asks or gets all your trading partners to change their security protocols, right? Or you could use, we have a protocol in IBM called Connect Direct, which has been used in the financial services industry for the last 40 years. It's actually used mainly for exchanging payment information between commercial customers and their banks. Many central banks around the world use the same standard. In fact, Australia pays $170 billion worth of social security via this protocol. It's never been compromised. So you could use something like that protocol as well to prevent such issues. And the last thing you can do is define a way or design a way to help you recover quickly. And one of the ways in which you can recover quickly is to be able to clean and restore your environment very quickly, right? So if you adopt a containerized based approach, you can instantiate a container on the fly in an instant. And then you can after use campaigns again as part of your trading partner onboarding to get your trading partners to change their credentials and certificates, right? So 3 ways: limit the exposure, limit the spread, and lastly, be able to recover quickly.
Right. Levin, do you have any use case to share, to understand this B2B integration? Is there any live use case which you can
Yeah,
share?
I do have a few use cases. Let me just share my screen again, if that's okay. I think I'm still sharing my screen, aren't I?
Yes, not yet.
Share my screen. I've got some use cases as backup slides. So at the end of today's session, I think you'll post a URL that shows the IBM collaboration website. The URL will have a significant amount of use cases or case studies, right? And people can access those case studies. What I'll share with you, because this is a public webinar, what I'll share with you is some of those case studies that are available. All of the case studies are available on that URL. But do reach out if you want to know about a case study in your particular industry. I've been personally involved in many government, health, social security, taxation, central banking, a number of those sectors to show how, the B2B infrastructure we put in place has been, really critical to those businesses or to the economy in general, right? Excuse me. So one use case I can share is with nets. Secure and timely communication with trading partners is crucial for nets. The company works with more than 300,000 merchants. This is in the Nordic countries, with more than 240,000 enterprises and over 240 banks across the Nordic and Baltic regions. and to maintain its, it's an industry-leading organization, and to maintain that reputation as a payments processing hub, and also to create headroom for continued growth, they had to make sure that their trading partner integration platform is always available. So they implemented the IBM file gateway, offering high levels of security, availability, and scalability. So they do roughly over 1 million files per day, offering that scalability for their business growth. They deliver 24/7 availability for mission critical trading partner communications. And it complies with stringent regulatory PCI requirements, right? I can share another use case in the defense space. So Coastal Pacific is the world's second largest distributor of consumer products for the US military. They were contracted to deliver more than 40,000 stock keeping units, SKUs, from about 700 manufacturers. And its buyers must constantly walk a very careful line between over and understocking the warehouses. So for distributors and worldwide logistics networks, it's important to have a just-in-time delivery capability and the ability to process orders quickly and efficiently. So with millions of EDI messages flowing between multiple stakeholders in the value chain, keeping those processes running is a particular challenge. So they implemented the IBM Sterling B2B integrator. And basically the B2B integrator is has got basically all the features of the file gateway with some additional capabilities around EDI standards, as well as, most importantly, the data transformation capability. And I'll share one more case study, Liang Fang in Hong Kong. So I'm sure everybody in India has heard of singles day in China, and I'd love to hear about any such events in India as well. It's really big business in China, right? Since its origins were actually college campuses as a way to celebrate single young people, also known as 11/11, because it falls on November 11. It's morphed into the biggest shopping event in the world, right? In 2018, they had a 24-hour sales extravaganza, which was spearheaded by e-commerce giant Alibaba, and it generated sales of $30 billion. And they had some performance issues because it was unexpected that they would have such volumes, right? So we very quickly worked with them to deploy multiple clusters for both inbound, outbound of the B2B integrator capability. And so it increases their transaction capability to about 1.5 million per hour, as compared to the 300,000 to 400,000 per hour for the previous year, right? So this was a significant, rapid scaling up, just showing the ability for our technology to scale, right? So those are the use cases. I can run through some more use cases if people are interested as well, but do reach out to me, because the other use cases that are critical to powering an economy would be something you'd be interested to hear on, particularly if you're in an industry sector that's not in financial services or retail, right?
Right. Okay, I'll take last two questions, Levin. So this respect to AI. So how do we leverage the advances of AI in B2B processes?
So we certainly have built AI into our platform, right? So obviously B2B integration can be advanced further by leveraging AI too, because AI can do things like automatically reconcile, detect anomalies, detect exceptions, and even help to automate some of the responses if it's a well-defined response, or even using advanced prescriptive analytics to recommend next best actions so that staff time is freed from lower value activities, right? So there's some examples, right? So a simple one would be, to collate all documents per a particular business process. For example, if I am a buyer and I send out purchase orders to my suppliers, and I might send out multiple purchase orders. And it so happens that, all these suppliers will send purchase order acknowledgements. They might break down the single purchase order into a number of different shipments, and each shipment will have its own corresponding invoice. We have some brilliant videos, client videos around that particular example. And please reach out if you're interested to see that video. And basically what AI does is it automatically correlates all the purchase orders, the shipping notices, the invoices, and so on, so that the business person will just need to ask, what is my PO? And then they can see all the documents that tie up with that, right? And this is artificial intelligence being used to automatically correlate all those documents. And then also you are able to use natural language to scrutinize what's in a particular document. For example, please show me all purchase orders that went out with paper clips in them, for example, right? So this is some of the advanced features of artificial intelligence. You could have a more complex scenario. For example, an AI agent that watches the shipment process as it occurs. And so the tool is instrumented to see all relevant events across multiple parties as those events happen. And the AI agent can notice a non-compliance event and know that this implies regarding the reshipment of an affected product. And it can analyze the most efficient source of a replacement and initiate a new shipment, right? For example, if and I'll give you a practical example here, if a purchase order was for a particular number of parts, and you find the shipping notice comes with one important part that's less, AI can say automatically, and I know normally you get that function in three-way matching with accounts payable systems, but the three-way matching will just say it matches or it doesn't match, right? But you can configure AI to say, well, we need to actually generate this order, an order for this part from an alternate supplier to meet our production schedules or meet certain customer demands, right? So AI can be used for those kind of advanced capabilities as well.
Right. I'll take last question. It says, will blockchain replace EDI?
That's a fascinating question, right? Because there are some skeptics out there who say blockchain is going to go nowhere, and our response to that is, it's here, it's going to stay, and it's already in use for a whole host of reasons. It has a benefit of reducing friction in the supply chain, providing traceability, provenance, transparency, and creating new business models, right? And case in point, IBM's completed over 500 blockchain projects, right? But it has a particular purpose and a particular use, right? So if you look at EDI is a form of collaborative B2B integration, where the integration pattern is simple, right? It's two trading partners who constantly exchange information as a way to synchronize their independent siloed-based systems, right? So, and basically when two trading partners do EDI or in a B2B fashion, they do things in the opposite and reverse order, right? So if I'm sending information to you, my ERP system might generate a purchase order. I might take that purchase order, extract it from my ERP system, format in the standard that you can receive it, and then transmit it in the protocol that you and I have agreed using the encryption or the authentication protocols we also agreed. When you receive that data, you'll do exactly the same thing I did, but in the opposite way, right? So in the blockchain world, it's a slightly different business model. In a blockchain world, it's more about a sharing economy. It's more about information that is co-created by business partners because we all work off a common ledger. So in a blockchain world, it's multi-party exchange of information. It's no longer bi-directional. It can be bi-directional if I'm only sharing information with one trading partner in a private way. There's a particular technique in blockchain that allows you to do that. But you can also share that same information with third parties. And you can also determine what information to share with that third party, right? So it's a slightly different world, but it's important to note that blockchain is a form of B2B collaboration, right? Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the whole world is not going to move to blockchain on day one, right? Or day X. So there's going to be a bit of coexistence between the current EDI approaches and the blockchain way of sharing business transactional information. The one limitation that EDI does have is there isn't any inherent native support unless trading partners build into it, and that's to exchange event information in the supply chain using event standards such as GS1 EPCIS. It can be done, but many blockchain solutions such as IBM Blockchain Transparent Supply provide that capability out of the box. I hope that that's answered the question.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much, Levin, and I thank you to our audience for really their valuable participation in the Q&A and in the poll. I hope you had a great time and wonderful listening to you, Levin. And so that's all we have today. I'm sure there have been many takeaways for the audience. So with this, we have come to the conclusion of this webinar. I thank you, the audience, for their interest and time participating in this webinar. As I said, that a survey form will appear in your browser after the webinar ends. We look forward to your feedback. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.